St. Paul, The Fan.
Seconds ticking down. 5 seconds to go. Flames will offer it out the center. And Calgary avoids the season series sweep. Winning here tonight in St. Paul 3-1. The much undermanned Wild gave it a strong battle, Tom, but they come up short. Yeah. Buchnevich hounded by Boldy. A long drive. Blocked by Brodin. He's got a man on a break. It's Boldy. In alone. On Binnington. Boldy in the slot. Took a shot. He scores! Yes! Matt Boldy in alone beats Binnington, and it's 3-1 in favor of Minnesota. Maroon centers. Goudreau. Freddie Goudreau gets off the snide. It's his first of the year, and late in the opening period, the Wild are back in front.
Alrighty now, here comes a Box in the Box radio show from Xcel Energy Center. And good morning, I'm Paul Allen. The Minnesota Wild hook the Tampa Bay Lightning this evening. And the first Box in the Box for 2024 is in the air. Nordo produces. Max Fuller is guiding the great ship Love Covenant from FM 100.3 KFAN and the 651 Carpet Studios. And we are happy to welcome to the program and the penalty box here at Xcel Energy Center with the Zamboni right in front of us. Sounds of hockey in play today for Box in the Box 9 to noon. It's Kevin Gorg from Bally Sports North and Canterbury Park. And here we are, Box in the Box, man. And first of all, thank you very much for joining, because I know you were in War Road last night for some Pee-wee bit. What's going on?
Yeah, Wild Youth Hockey Spotlight. Good morning, PA. Good morning, Nordo. And the Wild do this a handful of times every winter where they'll take over a rink, surprise the kids. The kids think they're coming to a practice. They show up. Wild Game Ops is there. Nordy, our anthem guy, John DeCosmaker, Adam Abrams on lead vocals. Mm-hmm. Nordy is running around, and the kids are going crazy. So they had about 1,400 fans last night at the Gardens in Warroad. Both high school bands were there. And these Pee Wee B teams put on a spine tingler, as you like to call it, 4-3 in a shootout. The Rams take down the Warriors, and we got to fly in the Marvin jet, so that was lovely. Left town about 3 o'clock, got home around 11:30, and Wes Walls and Stefan Bayou were the honorary coaches of this event, so that was fun to, chat with those guys, and it's a cool night.
You remember the buzz that was created in the music world and with the Minnesota Wild with Stefan Bayou. And Lionel Richie came out with that song.
Yes.
I mean, he put a song together for him. He was so ballyhooed, and it went, Vey you, vey me, we skate together naturally. I mean, you knew he was going to be good when he got a song.
One of my all-time favorite Lionel Richie creations. Rebo Ribel is here.
Rebo Ribel.
Is Kevin Fallness in the house, or is he still sleeping?
I haven't seen him.
Yeah, Fallness sleeps in sometimes on game days.
Really?
Wanted to give him a little shout-out, but he's a little sleepy today.
Yeah, well, wow, holy cow.
He'll be here.
Is he mailing it in?
No chance.
And here's the reason I ask, because over the weekend I heard Zach Halverson doing the doing the post game show and like talking to Tommy Reed and Joe and everything when they were up Winnipeg way.
He's been saving up vacation days for a long time, Mr. Fallness.
We got to get Zach Halverson to do Let's Play Hockey. I think we should all kind of band together. He's a rube, right? Like he's for our purposes working at Canterbury, he's kind of the Johnny the Mouse Mickelson, right? He's there every single day in the shadows, lurking. He's a complete Minnesota sports rube. We got to get Halvey on that stage. We got to do it.
Well, it's just been so interesting, as the Minnesota Vikings football season comes to a conclusion, or the puncher's chances in play this weekend. But let's say it comes to a conclusion, following you and this from afar until the 2024, because sadly, when Dean was out, and Coach Hynes, good for the team, good for all the ancillary pieces like you working with the team, because when you're traveling with the team and when you're around it as much as you are, as well as anybody, man. I mean, it can get a little crotchety, it can get a little quiet, it can get a little moody, and it just, it plays into the professional fun that these jobs offer. But they start so well. It's just it's an album flip, man. You got like Mel and Tim starting all over again on one side, flip it over to Backfield in Motion on the other side, and everybody's dancing and having a good time. And then the injuries hit. And it's not injury, it's injuries. And watching that first period against Calgary the other night with, Calgary's out here like la-di-da and Huberdeau just passing around, just having a good time. And then they open a lead and it's clear the team when it comes to like coming back and doing things explosively they would do with Kaprizov and Zuccarello and so on. Let's just say it's a work in progress, right?
It's got to be a different brand of hockey right now.
That might be the longest question I ever asked in my life, and for that I apologize.
But it's got to be a different brand of hockey, and I know we're going to talk to the head coach here later this morning. And listen, there is a way to win when you're shorthanded. They showed that in the last two periods of that game against Calgary. They got more physical. They played a more complete game defensively. They were able to kill plays, as Coach Hynes likes to talk about, quicker in that defensive zone. They weren't getting buzzed by the Flames like they did in period one. And then by the time we got to the third period, the Wild had found their juice, and they were rolling. I think 15 of the first 16 shots on goal in the final frame went the way of the home team. Mm-hmm. And if not for some great play by Markstrom and goal for Calgary, Minnesota probably wins that hockey game. Another great challenge tonight with Tampa Bay, coming off a loss in Winnipeg. We know all about the cup cred. I think this will be a special night for players like Pat Maroon and Zach Bogosian, who have been great additions to the Wild this year. And it's going to come down to Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, he was the reason they were still in that game the other night when they finally found their game, especially in the third period. And I guess the silver lining is there's not a lot of back-to-backs right now. He looks great. He's sharp, and he'll be carrying the mail, and hopefully he can give him a chance to win the night.
Well, go ahead.
Well, it's what you mentioned, though. The final two periods, the way that they dominated and had a chance to come back into the game. The interesting thing about this team is they're not dominating the first period most nights, and they're creating situations where, and of course, score first in an NFL game, chances are and chances go up that you're going to win. But this team is conceding leads early on in games and constantly having to play catch-up. We've seen these teams come back and get those victories in the past. But the splits of simply enough score first, they're losing all of those games if they don't put the puck in the net before the other guys.
And it's ironic, Nordo, because the staple of what we found when John Hynes took over this hockey team in the month of December is they consistently were coming out on fire and getting that lead. When they went 11-3 in those first 14 games under the new bench boss, they were coming out and playing the right way early. I think it's a confidence thing, and I think these guys aren't idiots. And when you're looking at the roster and you're missing the players they're missing, I think they came out last night against Calgary kind of wondering, okay, how are we going to win this hockey game? And Calgary came out and had all that juice early and put them back on their heels, and then they finally got pissed off, right? I mean, I talked to Pat Maroon after the first period, and he was upset, and you could sense that frustration in the interview. Room. And then he called his shot, because in the second question I teed him up. I said, listen, you're not happy with the way you played. One thing I'm seeing is the weak side D and this Calgary team are super aggressive. How do you counteract that as a wing? And he said, listen, there's a way to beat this team. As a wing, you have to take a hit, make a hard play with skill, chip that puck out, and get an odd number rush. lo and behold, that's how the Wild scored, with Maroon getting the goal in period 2 that kind of got the whole game flipped and got the crowd back into the game, and then the team really started to kind of feed off that momentum. But they have to come out with some passion early tonight, because Tampa is a team that hasn't played their best hockey yet this year, but off a loss in Winnipeg, they're going to try to take over the game in period 1, because they know if they get up a couple of goals, this is not a team that can come back quickly from a crooked number.
Well, the Kucherov numbers at this stage of the season are unbelievable. I mean, our top 2 guys, goal scoring wise, have a combined 26 goals. Where you have Eriksson Ek with 15 and Boldy with 11, then you have some others with 11. Kucherov has 27 by himself and 63 points. So 18, 16, and 5, and 7, 11, and 2 on the road. What the hell is that with the Tampa Bay Lightning? You're just not used to seeing. Generally, they're better than that, right?
They are, and I think they're a team that is a little bit push button these days. They've won multiple cups. The core of this hockey team understands the grind that is 82 games. You got a lot of players on this roster. I'll use Steven Stamkos as a prime example. He's an elite player. He's unbelievable.
He's been around so long, man.
He's so good. I mean, but he plays his best hockey later in the year, and he understands that. I think tonight, if you look at Tampa Bay and look what they're going to bring to the table, you look at their power play numbers, and they're ridiculously good. They're almost 30% with the man advantage. This is a night when you're Minnesota that if you get stuck defending and you get stuck on your heels and you take a bunch of penalties, it's going to be a long night. You can play like you did the other night, especially in the last 40 minutes, stay out of the box and play with an edge and not take a bunch of penalties, then you can allow your goaltender and your team to play with structure, and you can hang in there and have a chance in the third period.
That's Kevin Gorg, and I'm Paul Allen. Nordo produces on site from Xcel Energy Center, and John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild. He'll be making his VOX debut when we return to the penalty box at Xcel Energy Center, courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. Wild head coach John Hynes is next.
The Fan.
Never rise anymore when I kiss your lips, and there's no tenderness like before in your fingertips. You're trying hard not to show it, but baby, I know it. You lost that love and feeling.
9:16 in the neighborhood, and the neighborhood is Xcel Energy Center. We are in the penalty box for a Box in the Box radio show, and with Kevin Gorg, I'm Paul Allen. Very happy to be joined by John Hynes, the coach of the Minnesota Wild, who has been on 9 to Noon weekly for a few weeks now, and it's a pleasure to meet you in person, and best of luck tonight against those Lightning, my man.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. Always enjoy talking with you, and it's nice to finally meet you
right on,
face to face.
No beanpot questions this time.
Okay, all right, yeah, we're going to get out of the Boston thing now, right?
Well, that was all right, but you know what? It's like right when you got here, I have reverence for the beanpot, and you got Boldy, Boston College guy, you're a BU guy, and I just know like little things like that during the course of a long season where you're traveling, dealing with injuries, mood swings, and stuff like that. I just know like little conversations like that between coaches and players, or players and players, they just break up the monotony, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely it does, and it's no different with the beanpot. It's actually nice though out here that usually the beanpot's so big in Boston, and you get outside of Boston, and people are like, "Well, what's that tournament?" So the fact that you acknowledge it is really good. But as you said, I think the little conversations with guys, even the World Junior Tournament going on now is great, where you have guys that are rooting for different countries, and as you said, it breaks up the monotony of certain, the 82 game season, and we've certainly had a lot of those conversations for sure lately.
And Coach, it's my experience with all pro sports, specifically locally, that coaches rarely, if ever, lament injuries, but wham! I mean, and I've read some of your quotes and stuff where you'll recognize things with Gustafsson, Kaprizov, Brodin, Spurgeon, Zuccarello, Foligno, and Vinny Lettieri, and so on. But nevertheless, it's a bit of a pinch right now. I mean, that's about the only way to put it, right? And you just got to work around it.
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's reality where the guys are injured, but I think from a from a coaching standpoint, you have to have the right mindset with your team, and it is part of pro sports, particularly over an 82-game season in hockey. And it's important that you have depth. It's important that you have the right mindset with your team. Like it's usually never, but you recognize who's out of the lineup, but it's always the focus is who's in the lineup, and you got to try to find a way to win. You have to find a way to get players to accept and thrive in some different roles. And, it's also one of the most important things is why you want to have strong structure in your play, because a lot of times over an 82-game season, you're going to be called upon to plug and play, meaning you're going to have to plug guys into your lineup, plug guys into different roles. But I think if you can be really good with your structure, and then that bleeds down into the American League team, that when you get in situations like this, you have to play the ultimate team game.
You're a little over a month into it, and you've talked with us on a regular basis about learning about your hockey team. And I think you learn a lot, John, in situations like this when they're adverse situations and you're missing this laundry list of key players. In the last week and change, what have you learned about your group?
Well, I've learned that we do have good depth really in two ways. I think that there's players that have been on the team that have been asked to step up in different roles and maybe get more ice time or more situations that they play in, and they've been able to execute those things. And then we've had players that have been recalled from Iowa that have come up, and they've been impact players for us. They've been hard to play against. I think they fit into the identity of how we want to play. So that's certainly helped. But the big thing for me, I think that drives all those things is just the character of the group. When you get in these types of situations, you need to have some resiliency, some character to your team, and that's been most impressive to me.
When you talk about the call-ups and those who are out playing elevated minutes, or those like say Jake Lucchini, he just played 3 games for you, and he could be an up and down guy all year. Who knows? How do you as a coach guard against those players trying to go out of body and put on the greatest show on earth for you in limited time, where on the other side of that it could be compromising the structure and what you want to do?
Yeah, I think it's important to communicate with them, and there's a reason why they're in the American League. There's a reason why they're here with us now, because they're good players, and every player has an identity. And I think it's important when players come up from Iowa and come into the lineup, as you said, they have to play to the identity that gives them the best chance to be an NHL player full time.
Right.
And as you said, it's we want those guys to give us a chance to win. So bring what you bring as a player. You don't need to step outside of that. Bring that at a high level and play within the team structure.
I look at Joel Eriksson, and I know when you coached against the Minnesota Wild, you could clearly see the value he brought to this hockey team. I'm curious, John, we haven't had this conversation yet, but now that you've had a chance to work with a guy like Ek and see his value, I think the team learned last year in the playoffs he might be their most valuable asset they have. Maybe not their best overall player, but maybe their most valuable one. What have you learned about Ek and how much value he brings to your squad, especially on nights like this?
Well, he's one of those players that does everything, and they're really hard to find. Basically a top-line center that's got size, speed. He can check the other team's top lines. He's good in the face-off circle. He's on your top power play. He's your top penalty killer. Those players are really, really hard to find, and he's got an engine. I mean, he can play. You can play him 18 minutes. You can play him 24 minutes, and you get the same game. He's been really impressive, and you realize, obviously you guys see it, the fans see it, but now having the opportunity to coach him and being around different teams in the league, a player like Eki, it's really, really hard to find, and I'm thankful that we have him.
Have you been around a guy like him? Because last year, the reason he missed all that time into the playoffs was he blocked a shot late in the season at Pittsburgh. But I look at the abuse this guy takes every single night. Every team seems to hate Joel Eriksson because of the way he plays, and you know where he goes. He's in front of the blue paint, just getting beat up on every night. Have you ever been around a guy that can take that abuse and still be out there playing that same game every night?
Yeah, that's what's amazing with him is that for the roles that he plays in and the minutes he plays the game the right way all the time. He goes to the hard areas. He's difficult to play against. The thing I do like too is he does take some punishment, but he gives some out too, which is good.
Hey, with some of the newer players or some of the players with elevator roles, as you said, when it comes to the nuance of what's expected to win games, we can get into special teams, power play and penalty kill, and losing, players like you've lost for hopefully a short amount of time. Obviously, it's going to impact that, but blocking shots or doing some of the grimy things, that not everybody is super comfortable with doing. Have you noticed, or are you noticing that will get together collectively and in essence take some of the harder things to accomplish, some of the more grimy things, and elevate them to help you guys win?
Yeah, I think so. I think usually that comes into a team mindset when you're missing some players, particularly key players. I think, collectively as a group, that, lots of times you have to be airtight defensively. And I think that calling card of being hard to play against, some of those things that you're talking about, you can't go without them. Over the course of 82 games, if you have a healthy lineup, sometimes you may have a B game, but you have enough skill and talent to be able to get through that game. Where in the situation we're in right now, we have to be at max capacity, and all the smaller details in the game truly matter. Yeah,
that's what I meant. It's like, with the up and down guys specifically, I would imagine you can have the conversation like, hey, with all due respect, if you're not blocking those shots, you won't be here long. If you are not taking this or giving that, you won't be here long. It may be painful and it may not be what you prefer, but that's what we have to have right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the good things, what I've noticed, particularly in hockey, is when these guys get the opportunity like they do, they're trying to make their mark in the NHL, that lots of times they know. Sometimes you don't even have to tell them. We do, and they recognize it, but lots of times they're going to do those things because they want to stay. They want to make their mark in the NHL. They want to show value to the team. They want to stay here. So that's usually a strong motivation for them internally.
This is John Hynes, head coach of the Minnesota Wild, from the penalty box at Xcel Energy Center. It is a VOX in the Box radio show. It's Paul Allen with KG.
So we know the name, the Tampa Bay Lightning. We know about the Stanley Cups that they've won, core of this team, multiple Stanley Cup champions. What are we expecting tonight, and how do we try to counteract what the Lightning like to do?
Yeah, they have some really top-end talent, obviously, everywhere, really, in goal. I think they have a trophy winner at every position. Norris, Hart, MVP.
Kucherov's numbers right now are unbelievable.
Leading the league in points. So, yeah. You have to be able to. One of the things that makes them very dangerous is they're a very good transition team. So, you can't give them easy looks. Like tonight, we have to make sure that if they're going to get they're going to get chances because of their talent. But you have to make sure that they work for them. We can't give them any gifts. Odd man rushes, easy plays in the defensive zone, and I think to counteract that, when you have a strong offensive team, a good transition team, we got to do a really good job to try to make them defend. In the way that we come up the ice, our puck management, how we play in the offensive zone, and try to make those guys defend and expend energy defensively. So maybe it takes away some of that offensive pop that they like to have.
Hey, Coach, what did Guerin and/or the owner or whomever tell you about Faber? I'm sure you knew who he was. You watched him and the whole thing. But, what did they tell you about him before you got here? And now that you've coached him, what do you think?
Well, they, both Craig and Billy, talked about the team when I first got here. And Brock was a guy that they really felt had tremendous potential and was playing, having a pretty good season. But now having the opportunity to coach him, they maybe undersold it a little bit. His skating,
his size,
his size, his ability to play, big minutes. And now with Spurgeon and Brodin out, he's really taken an elevated role to play against top players, play the top power play, and he's managed it really well. He's like having Eck on the back end, just with the size and the skating and the ability to play both sides of the puck at a high level.
All right, time for two more for the coach, KG.
The other young player that I keep focusing on and looking towards, again, building and seeing growth is Marco Rossi. And, you weren't here last year, but I can tell you, Coach, he really struggled. The confidence wasn't there. 1 point in 19 games just didn't seem to fit at the NHL level. Completely different player this year, and it just seems like consistently he's starting to get the confidence, not just to make plays, because he's got skill, but he's starting to play with that edge, and he's not Joel Eriksson Ek yet, but he's not afraid to go in some of those areas, and that's a completely different game than we saw last year from him.
Yeah, and that's the reason he's probably having more success. I didn't really see him last year, but now having the opportunity to coach him, he's a great open ice player. He's got great speed, skill, vision. But in this league, if you want to be a point producer, you have to play in the hard areas, and he's done a nice job getting into scoring areas. He's got rebound goals. He's in for tips. So he's added that layer to his game where, there's going to be times where there's time and space, and he certainly has the skill and talent to be really effective in those areas. But to truly be a point producer at this level is you have to get into those harder areas of the game, and he's adding that to his game, and that's why he's seems as though he's been a threat for us every night.
Coach, so you're going to have your game plan and your structure, and you're going to play the way you want to play, and clearly, when you had all your proverbial horses, it was working incredibly well right when you got here. The energy was absolutely fantastic. With the circumstances you have now, John, do you have to temporarily alter the style of play that you would prefer to play, or is that too drastic?
I think it's a little bit too drastic. There's an identity that you want to play with, and there's a structure that you want to play with. It's not necessarily changing it. I think there are certain things where we have to have more detail to our game. I think it's a situation, for example, puck management. I think when you have a lot of guys out of your lineup, I think it's important that you manage the puck well, whether that's how you break out, particularly how you enter the offensive zone. And then I think when you get a team defending, you want to make sure that we can extend those times where they have to spend more energy defending than attacking us.
Yeah.
But it's small tweaks, but I think it's important that you do play to the identity that you think gives you the best chance to win, regardless of who's in your lineup.
My man, great meeting you in person.
Appreciate it.
Great job so far, and best of luck this evening, okay?
All right, thanks. Enjoyed it.
John Hynes, coach of the Minnesota Wild, back to Xcel Energy Center after this on KFAN.
On the Fan.
The sounds of hockey very much in play at Xcel Energy Center for VOX in the Box. Let's crank it up. We have a player on the ice. We don't have a ton of action now. Oh, we can hear a stick. Hey, we can hear a stick and a puck, and we can hear a conversation. And the conversation is being guided by Jonas Brodin, the blue liner. I think December 8th has been the duration of time that he's been out, but he's on the ice right now, trying to get himself ready to come back soon. Does this happen all the time, or is this relatively new, or what?
First time I've seen him out here. This is a good step, right? There's a process involved when a guy goes on injured reserve, and the first step back is skating on their own, which is what we're watching this morning with Brodin. And then slowly but surely, as he gets a little more confident, gets up to speed, they'll filter him into a practice or a morning skate, and he'll start to get real close and start to travel with the club. And when you've got 7 guys waiting in the wings, any positivity right now is a good thing. And it's not just 7 players; it's some of the
Look at those names.
Look at the names. We're talking Kaprizov, Brodin, Spurgeon, Zuccarello, Foligno, Gustafson, and Vinny Lettieri. It's tough when you're missing a core of your hockey team and your best players on and off the ice.
Hey, covenant claps for the producer, Nordo, for the sounds of... I love when we clap for ourselves. I do it too. But it's the sound. It's the sound because it's radio.
It's very nice.
For this Sounds of Hockey microphone.
It's old school.
Yeah, well, it's.
You guys don't want to know what I had to do to get up there.
I wish I could have watched it and videotaped it.
Cirque du Lenord.
That's some Bob Villa type stuff right there, bro.
Fat people were sweating.
We have a microphone hanging and dangling over a sheet of glass that will not be the sheet of glass when you come to the game this evening. And not to bore everybody, with the details of it, but this is for Box in the Box. I think we started it, PA and Dubé right near the end of his run, maybe 07, 08. Then we were kind of in and out with it, but nevertheless, it's been around for a decade and a half, whatever. And throughout all the years, you've heard it. with the hole in the penalty box, we would have players shoot at the hole, and I'd hang a $100 bill. And
Blake Wheeler.
If you're Biggie Funk, if you are the defenseman they used to have, forgot his name. He's not there anymore.
Bufflin? Big Buff?
No, not Buff. It's one of the first. Well, Jonathan Taves was the first one.
Ben Sherratt was the guy.
Sherratt.
Yeah.
Bingo. And then there was a Winnipeg player from Somerset, Wisconsin. Well, that guy was like a big Packers.
Apple something?
Apple White. Yeah, Apple something. Exactly. You're playing fast right now. So it's like the beauty of it is, because of Biggie Funk, Blake Wheeler, when he was with Winnipeg, he'd get the locker room, he'd get the room all wound up about, there's this three-chinned cartoon character who hangs a $100 bill, and they would line up to shoot for it.
I remember that.
And then you would get players like
Yuri Hoodler.
Yuri Hoodler
steals it,
stealing it, skates around with it, gives it to the equipment guy, and then eventually comes back and gives it back. So that was sweet. But for the Kings,
Kopitar?
Thank you, Anze Kopitar. Anze Kopitar. Now, see, the sheet of glass you'll see this evening when you come to the game will have a hole in it, like all sheets do at every arena in the history of arenas ever to arena. But because of Ryan Donato last year, taking out all of his angst and all of his anger for not being with the team anymore or whatever.
Yeah, it was like Zdeno Chara on All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, that's what it was.
The shot
he wound right up.
Yeah.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, remember my man with the big slap shot for the Wild? One of the biggest.
Ralston?
Brian Ralston. Just imagine that times 2.
Oof.
He hit it so hard, we didn't even notice it. It put a little crack in the glass.
Yeah.
So we didn't even notice it. About 35 minutes before the game, he goes, hey, we're going to change this glass and hopefully don't delay the... Well, that didn't go over incredibly well, as you can imagine.
I mean, they got the LED light show, Nordy's out here, the Ice Girls
there's a
running
crack
around.
in the glass.
You got I Know Right guy,
Yeah.
getting in the way of Kucherov trying to replace a glass they didn't know was broken in the first. We didn't know it was broken either.
So massive apologies. I guess it's a little late for that, but to the facilities crew and those that have to handle it, because we clomped on them massively.
So we get here for the first VOX in the box, and I got a $100 bill. Might have just hit a pick 5 at Canterbury. It's relatively early in the season. I'm like, where's the hole? So now I'm like,
the replacement
now
glass.
I'm like looking for a tool to cut the hole.
Scab glass.
And I'm like, okay, well that's cool. Well, now we've completely lost the ambiance of this. The sounds of hockey, which sounds of hockey and skates and stuff like that in FM sound really, really good.
Well, what's funny about it is
it was just so sterile and diseased. I'm like, this sucks. So the con to get the sounds of hockey.
I have no idea how he got up there.
He climbs up on this thing. He hangs that a microphone dangling on the other side of glass that won't even be here this evening. And it reminds me of 2000, the year 2000, when it's first play-by-play reps that I got in my life. It was called the Cybercast. Remember the Cybercast?
Yes.
2000.
Yes.
Vikings came to AM 1130 KFAN, and they said, CBS, the parent company for WCCO Radio, will not make available an internet broadcast for our fans around the country and around the world. So we one of the vice presidents, I think her name was Terry Hummel, said, would you guys do it? So I think it was Mick Anselmo and Greg Swedberg and Doug Westerman at that time said, yeah, we'll do it. So literally, we're in Bloomington off Xerxes, where AM 1130 was, and it's me, Dubé, Hartman, Common, I think former producer David Ruth, about 7 of us in there, and Swedberg and superstar Mike Morris, and Swedberg comes in and says, "This has happened. Who would like to do the play-by-play?" I put my hand up, so I'll do it. I'll do it. Yes, and boom. And he's loose! So superstar Mike Morris, Greg Swedberg, did a game with me at the Metrodome from the baseball press box. And so we would do the games from the baseball press box.
Oh, wow.
Now, when we went on the road, I called probably 4 or 5 of the games because we could not get a space in stadiums because we're not like a regular conventional broadcast
you don't get
credentialed. Right. Well, we could get credentialed, but like I'm not going to be sitting next to crotchety columnist guy, trying to cut. I have no idea how to do this. I just started.
Where'd you do it from?
So we would do it from suites. We would do it from like empty rooms and baseball press boxes. Abbott and I. Chad Abbott and I were the only, and Star, we were the ones to do it. So, like, I remember it was 2000, and the team's playing at New England, and the Vikings had a player named Bryce Pop. Well, trying to figure out, like, well, first of all, trying to learn how to do the trade, to actually do the job was one challenge, but then trying to figure out who the players were was difficult. So we had a player named Bryce Pop, and he had a sack, and he was like 3 sacks in the game. And, I mean, I must have gone through every player calling it in Bloomington off TV, and the sack is Kevin Eric, it's Bryce Pop! It's Bryce Pop! I was so excited when I figured it out. Those were some challenges there in 2000. So that's how I got my start in play-by-play. But when we would go on the road, it's when you're a cybercast, you're not going to get with Fox or CBS or ABC or ESPN or whomever.
Can we get the Nat sound?
Hey, can we get your Nat sound? Hey, can we bring Nordo along to hold the parabolic, the big satellite thing, strictly for this cybercast? How many people listen? We have no idea. Who's your play-by-play guy? We don't know that either. He just started. So it was all that. So we were at Silverdome in Detroit, Michigan.
Pontiac.
And we were in Pontiac, Michigan. Abbott and I was Star. And this was the only time of all the road opportunities we got where there was nowhere to put the crowd mic. So Abbott went Nordo on it, or Nordo today went Abbott on it. I mean, he has a table on top of a table, climbs up, almost falls, takes off the ventilator cover to whatever the vent was, and then strings the microphone out there, tapes it down because there are fans by it. So just the outside part of it is exposed for the crowd mic, and it was just a work of art. It took about a half hour to get it done, and I think I saw far too much butt crack during the course of the elevation of the microphone. But
now we know why his foot doesn't work.
But here's the most beautiful thing about it is that it's a great high fives for everybody. Game's about ready to kick, and boom, goes to turn up the crowd mic, doesn't work.
Come on. After all that,
didn't work. Ooh, but it was just a cable. So, I mean, it was like, all right, we got this. Hey. So Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, I think, changed the cable, and then we had crowd noise. But that's what that reminds me of what Nordo had to do today.
So we could hear Jonas Brodin.
For those listening at FM 100.3 KFAN with the expectations you should have for what a Vox in the Box radio show presents. The constituents that will be the man, the hierarchy is taken away part of it with the shoot for 100 when the lightning, the distraction factor, but can't take away the crowd mic because of Nordo.
Nope.
Silverdome, Nordo. Chords are working. Jonas Brodin, morning skate, 45 minutes from now. I think we need to chat about your Broncos a little bit.
Do we really?
Well, just a little bit, simply because they beat your second favorite team, my favorite team. I still can't believe the Minnesota Vikings lost that game.
Me too.
But then after that Sunday night, what in the hell happened to your favorite team the rest of the way?
It's just a mess.
I mean, the anti-Vikes a disaster right now, yelling at Russell on the sideline.
Yeah, you know what? I go back to 2 years ago when they made the original deal to, trade with Seattle and give up so much for a quarterback that, yes, at one point was a leap. It was on the back nine of his career. And it's just kind of domino affected this organization to a point now where there's no return. Like, they have to reboot the whole thing.
There's no return.
No, it's 5 years, man. I mean, they're just they're in a position now where they're not going to be competitive.
They might eat $80 million, Gorg.
He makes it sound like Premier League and relegation is coming up for Aston Broncos.
They might need to be relegated.
It's depressing, honestly. And I told you guys this. We've talked about it. I have a hard time. I love my team. I've loved the Broncos for 50 years.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not a Russell Wilson guy, and I'm really not a Sean Payton guy. This has tested me.
Yeah.
And so you've seen me for years. On Sundays when they win, I'm sending out the tweets and the horse and the emoji and all that.
When they beat the Chiefs, you went nuts.
It's been tough to really embrace this football team.
How great did that feel? Kind of like when we beat the Niners. Hey,
yeah, it's great.
No stopping us now. And then the quarterback pops the Achilles, and then the running quarterback can't throw, and then the throwing quarterback throws it to the wrong colors. The rookie has an anxiety attack, and I think we're using Sean Mannion at Ford Field.
So we bench Wilson and we're supposed to lose. Like, we're supposed to lose that game last week against the Chickens, and they win. So now the draft equity, the whole thing stinks. It's just
Against who?
the Chargers.
Oh, the Chargers.
Okay,
I was like, damn, man, Pittsburgh.
San Diego Sea Chickens, whatever you want to call them. They stink.
They might be a team that's actually trying to lose harder than your team
I guess
is
so.
right now.
And it was a terrible football game.
It's a weird
Awful.
part of the season, man. Like, it's Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. I love him. I mean, he's a super great guy, a little on the quiet side, but he's one of the more intense people I've ever met. And what he's done when he's had most of his creatures was novel. I'd never seen anything like it, and it was working. Well, now we're at a point of the season where you mentioned the LA Chargers. Well, they got Herbert. I mean, they got a quarterback, and everybody wants a quarterback. So it's like, here's Bo Melton for 35. Oh, no, not that. Bo Melton with a big gain against the Vikings defense. Oh, no. Maybe that'll help us keep Flores. I'm just kidding, but I really hope Brian Flores stays around, man.
Absolutely. Fun to watch, the blitzing. When these teams are healthy, like, think about if Cousins never went down. And it's hard to imagine. Aren't they a playoff team? I mean, they're knocking
They're
at
almost
the door.
a playoff team now through 9 quarterbacks.
So
They have 3 or 4 more wins with Cousins.
for sure.
Yeah.
And we've seen now the value he presents. I think you re-sign him for a couple years. You draft a quarterback to
Well, what
learn.
happened to the Broncos talk? Why did segue to our
I got out of
misery?
that as quick as I could.
Yeah, we have 45 segments a week, and this is one that we
Bronco
prefer to
talk.
focus on somebody else's misery. Dave Logan and Haven Moses will be joining us later. For,
number 25, Haven Moses, my
Broncos
guy.
fan line.
It's crazy the last couple of years, though, in the NFL, and the NFL is king in the core 4. There's no doubt about it. But this time of year, it's not only awful for 14-ish markets that aren't going to be playing playoff games, but look at these quarterbacks, man. I mean, the Tommy DeVitos of the world, you're rolling out Stidham because you hate your guy.
But look at the ones in the playoffs.
Stick. I mean, Easton Stick.
Yes.
And so the last year, I think there were 66 or 68 different QBs to start games. We've had 4 of them here in town. I mean, just that position right now, you want to talk about disease.
Yeah.
Quarterbacking in the NFL is awful right now.
With the exception of those who are in the playoffs.
How about
they all got their dogs.
How about this? As a Rube and a fan of playoff football, there is a legitimate chance that we're in Vegas. The Wild are going to be in Vegas for Super Bowl Sunday. We play the Golden Knights the night after the Super Bowl, so we're legitimately
Monday night,
going to be there. We could see Cleveland and Detroit. Flacco and Goff, the 2 markets that have suffered forever.
Yeah.
This is legitimately a thing.
Yeah.
2 coaches that I know, especially one you absolutely adore.
Who?
Stefanski, your guy.
Yeah.
And the knee biter, Campbell.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be an epic. Cleveland and Detroit. And honestly, this can happen, right? It's legitimately possible.
It could be epic.
Yeah,
be great.
We will see how things fall this weekend, but there could be second to none wild card drama in one game if things fall the way they may fall.
Rams, Lions?
Boom.
Yep.
Stafford back in the spot.
Hello.
Goff looking at a sideline, looking at McVay being like, you know what? I never said this, but I'm completely sick of the fact that everybody thought you had everything to get to do with getting this team to the Super Bowl, and I had nothing to do with it.
Oh, my God. Would that be
Watch me
juicy.
now.
Oh, my.
James Brown song comes, watch me now. Hey, the big payback. Hey, ha.
And by the way, the Lions secondary right now is scruffling. And you've got
look
Puka
pretty bad against us.
Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Are you kidding me? Like, I'll take right now, if that happens, give me the 3 or 3.5, whatever Vegas is going to allow.
Yeah.
Take those Rams, maybe on the money line. Hey, I'm telling you.
Hey,
it's going to be awesome.
So when I think of Puka Nacua, okay, now like Stephon Diggs, I think what was he, a 5th-round pick back in the day? Nacua, a 5th-round pick, catching passes from Jaron Hall at BYU. It's that really is one of the beautiful things about the NFL draft is if you get the right guy into the right system with the coach who post-pandemic handles humanity the right way and is not going Frank Kush, Bill Parcells, Woody Hayes on it. You can't do that anymore in the NFL. If you do, you lose the guys. I'm not kidding you. I've seen it.
Yep.
So the right coach handling scenarios the right way. It's you can win, and you can win as a human and as a player like Puka Nacua and be a legitimate star. It reminds me, it's a high-end example, but like the Red Wings. When they kept making the playoffs for like 20 or 25 years, and then you do like a little cursory look at like, what? They got Datsuk there? What? They drafted Zetterberg there.
They hit home run after
you see
home
what
run.
In the deep parts of the draft.
Home run after home run after home run. It's the secret sauce to the whole thing. And that, again, it's the Broncos and Vikings aren't going to be likely a part of the playoffs. I still love football so much. I think about playoff football, Rams, Lions, some of the. It's going to be, and I'm pulling for Cleveland. I'm pulling for Stefanski. I'm now in the dog pound, right? I'm a part of that now because of your friendship with him.
Yeah.
Knowing what a great guy he is, and hearing him on the radio with you a couple times.
Shoot.
Now I'm in.
If we're not in the playoffs, cool. I'm angling to go to their wild card.
Why wouldn't you? It'd be awesome.
A warm place to sit.
Plus, it's Cleveland, man. You got to pull for those guys.
I understand. Last one, PWHL, the Professional Women's Hockey League. What will lead to success for that league? Because I've seen a bunch of features on them, and all these names and everything. Even if you don't follow women's hockey that closely at the high school level or whatever, you recognize a lot of these names for the firepower they brought to Brad Frost's team and other teams. So I'm really hoping they do well. What will it take to succeed?
Well, the first step is already in place. They finally have condensed it to one league. You don't have leagues going at each other, taking players away from each other. You have one condensed league where it's all the best players in the world. So right away, you have a showcase now of the best talent of women's hockey. And now you've got markets, and we've seen this already in the opening couple days of the league, like a Toronto, like an Ottawa. We'll see it here on Saturday. They've already sold nearly 8,000 tickets for that game on Saturday here in St. Paul.
Wow.
You've got hockey-crazy markets that can support this, and it's world-class hockey. Like women's hockey, if you haven't watched it, maybe you've come to it in the Olympics just in passing. It's phenomenal. And this now, because it's a condensed, smaller form and it's one league, you get all the best players in the world on that stage. It's going to be awesome. They needed to do this, but it took a long time for them to get to this place where they can put them all in one spot. And I think that's going to be the key.
Are there dramatic rules differences from men and women like there certainly are at the high school level?
Well, the body checking's the big one that people point to, but if anyone's watched high-level girls or women's hockey, there's still physical play. You still can rub players out on the wall. You can still go to the net. You can still move people around. You're just not going to see a Marcus Foligno type of hit where you're on the forecheck and you try to run somebody into the third row. Other than that, it's great skill play. It's great speed play. The game has just evolved to the point now where the game is at a great place, and talent is on display. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I saw the Minnesota won last night. We're going to do some highlights in our game tonight, second intermission.
They beat Boston?
They beat Boston 3-2 on the road last night, as I mentioned, the home opener Saturday afternoon. If you've got kids, you got young hockey players in your family, come out to the Xcel Energy Center this Saturday. I believe it's a 2:30 or 3 o'clock puck drop. And it's going to be really fun to see how Minnesota embraces it. It's going to be phenomenal to watch because, like I mentioned, the talent is there. And I can't wait to see our good friend Kelly Panic, who works with us at Bally Sports. She's on the team, leads Steck line, tremendous hockey players. My girl, Maddie Rooney, the goaltender, longtime superstar with the Olympic team, UMD, and, of course, from Andover. So, yeah, really pumped about it.
Hey, that was awesome you came by. Have fun on TV tonight, and may all your spotting up in 2024 go the right way, Senor Spotty, okay?
Looking forward to it, PA.
That's KG, Kevin Gorg, at it's Gorgomatic 21.
There it is.
At Gorgomatic 21 via the old X machine, if you'd like to follow. And right around the corner, Russo Radio. Michael Russo from the penalty box at Xcel Energy Center for some Box in the Box, a day the Tampa Bay Lightning are in town to take on our Wounded Wild on KFAN.